how to create competitive advantage for frontline staff by linking our back office ERP and accounts to front office, in particular using CRM. And to start the webinar, I wanted to share some research that came in from Sage in the last couple of days. In many ways, it's the reason we're doing this webinar this morning. It's interesting to see how businesses in Ireland are changing and adapting to new technology, and in particular to cloud technology. The most recent research by Sage tells us that 71% of SMEs in Ireland are either already using or have plans to adopt cloud. I think the actual usage number at this stage is around 32%, but double that expect to be using it pretty shortly. And in fact, of that 71%, 75% say that access to information on the go is the primary reason for investing in cloud technology. And that certainly confirms our own experience on the ground working with SMEs worldwide, but also in Ireland. The mobile piece is becoming more and more important to people, whether that be using smartphones or tablets, and getting information, particularly back-end information, out to people on the road and also to people working, for example, in telesales. And in fact, we'll share this research with you also at the end of the webinar. We'll send you a link to it. Just to kick off the webinar this morning, and to give a little bit of context, some people in the webinar are probably very familiar with ERP and CRM systems, others maybe not so much. But when we talk about ERP, we're talking about back office, back end systems that essentially are used to run the business. They tend to be post-quotation or post-order. In other words, they're very often focused on post-sales. They handle a lot of deep transactional information, quotes, orders, billing, stock, returns, and so on. And companies install ERPs because they want to use software and technology to bring in better business efficiencies, reduce inaccuracies, and generally standardize processes around business transaction. And typically these days as well, ERP will have quite good management and business intelligence facilities built in. On the other hand, CRM systems are, sometimes we would describe them as a softer system, or a system to handle softer issues in the company. They tend to have information around customer contact, profile data, and customer interactions, with an emphasis on tracking, managing relationships. But also, CRMs are often introduced not so much when you want to, as it were, save money and drive efficiencies. It's when you want to grow a business. So you're thinking in terms of upselling, cross-selling, pipeline management, forecasting, looking to the future. So one way to describe the use of CRM systems is that they're often deployed to drive the behavior both of employees and customers, whereas ERP systems are much more transactional in nature and are there to do a lot of heavy lifting, as it were. And the trend now is very much to try to put the two systems together, or if you haven't got CRM, a lot of companies are beginning to invest in CRM because they're using that tool to link the back end to the front office users. So it's this whole idea of having a single system for the company and having joined up thinking within the company. So in terms of the front office users and what we call the front end challenges, those are the servicing people, the sales people, the telesales people, generally the customer facing people. What are their challenges, and why would you want to give them access to back office data? Why would you want to equip them, for example, with CRM tools or mobile tools? Well, there's three main reasons we come across working with clients in Ireland and around the world as well. And very often the first is to maximize selling time and generally to make people more productive. The numbers on selling time is very interesting. All around the world, 2/3 of a salesperson's time is spent not selling. So there's 1/3 is really spent selling, which is phenomenal, really. It's a phenomenally bad use of time in an organization. The second front-end challenge tends to be around selling effectiveness. How can we sell more? How can we be more effective with the people who we already have in our teams? And finally, managers want to be able to get better visibility on what's happening around the organization, particularly around how we're performing. So those are the main three challenges we find at the front end. And for the rest of the webinar, we're going to explain how the back office systems and using the likes of CRM technology, you can link that to front office people, as I say, who are customer facing. If we begin just by looking at back office data, I've just brought up a slide from Sage 200. This would be very familiar to anyone who runs account systems or back-end systems or ERP systems. This is what back office information looks like. And sometimes front-end people want that level of detail, but it's usually the level of detail more required maybe in the accounts office or the billing office or even the estimator's office. And again, I just put up a list of, for example, quotations, very, very typical back-end ERP-style data. So usually there's no shortage of information available in the company. It's a question of who is it available to and what is it being used for. So when it comes to the front-end challenges, how do you go about maximizing selling time? Well, if you look at what front-end people do, and we'll take your average salesperson out there this morning visiting companies directly or visiting retail stores or whatever, if you were to stop them and ask them what takes up most of their time, they'll say not selling. It's things like looking up information, calling in for information, double entry of customer data, and perhaps even awkward coding practices sometimes where they're doing quotes on their Word documents and then they're doing something else on another quoting template perhaps. And this is what leads to 2/3 of the time not being spent on selling. And one of the most useful things you can do for front office people, such as the sales force or perhaps the field servicing people as well, is to get them summary data of the customer. The information I've just shown you on the previous slide, while it's very good information, very few salespeople, for example, have time to really look that up. They may be looking for a particular invoice at a given time, but if you're about to go into, let's say, Abbey Retail Limited, it's probably the bigger picture that you want first. Yeah. So one of the common things we do for clients when we're working in CRM projects is delivering summary information, typically on tablets, to the rep so they can use it in the field. They can sit in a cafe, for example, and check out the trends, because this allows them to make much better decisions in terms of what to ask when they're going into the meeting, maybe what product areas to focus on. This is not especially difficult to do these days. Once you have the core data available in the ERP, you pretty much can get this rendered into CRM very quickly. Now, some ERPs like Sage 200, for example, will have the CRM module already built in, so the linking up is much easier to do than if you were to buy some CRM package perhaps just off the shelf that's unrelated. Now, one of the most common items we come across when we're talking to companies is the whole area of quoting practices. And a question we're often asked is, how can we get our salespeople to do their quotes and all their customer contact in the one place, and at the same time link it up to our ERP system so that there isn't double entry, there isn't different pieces of information in spreadsheets and in account system, for example. So I'm just going to turn to my colleague here from Brook and ask Grant, what sort of flexibility is available these days to a company in terms of using their back office, typically their ERP system or account system, and linking that up to the front office people, we'll say through CRM, and allowing, say, a rep to do a quote and still only go to the one place, but do it all in the one place. Yeah?
Yeah. Thanks, Michael, and good morning, everybody. So I would say it's a two-part answer to a single question. The first thing you'd probably want to do is figure out how much of the information you'd actually want in the CRM. And that may be in the form of just customers and suppliers only, which basically means that you wouldn't be able to get orders and quotes, etc., pulled into the CRM, and then you wouldn't be able to actually deal with that particular data. You can go to customers, suppliers, and products, but then that will limit you in certain circumstances as well. So you can have a tiered version of the information coming in, and at a later stage actually bring in the extra data as you need it or as required. So that being the case, once you have it in the system, you then have another question to ask yourself, and where in the system are you happy using it? So that might be within the CRM system, and it might be ERP. So if you're front office, the CRM system may be more comfortable for you, and you can then access that data directly from the CRM on a per user basis. So you can actually go through your organization and decide which user is more comfortable within the CRM, or which user is more comfortable within the ERP, and which data might be more relevant to each user. So the question, as I say, is two parts. Decide firstly where the data is coming from, okay, and how much you'd like it. And the second part is, per user, decide where and how they'd like that to happen. Insofar as the actual data, once it's in there, you can then convert it to sales order processing or purchase order processing.
Yeah, and Grant, I think it's true to say that as ERP systems and CRM systems merge, as you get in the case of Sage 200, you have massive flexibility in terms of what you want to put into a CRM, for example.
Yeah, you certainly do. You can go line by line, customer by customer, product by product. Now, they might have slightly different names within the database, but once you've pulled it in, it'll effectively be the same thing. Okay. So instead of being called, say, product group, it might be called product family would be the main differences.
And look, that's just the detail of setting it up there.
Yeah.
Okay, before I finish on this piece, I wanted to cover an issue that we get asked about a lot. I don't want to get technical on the call at this point, but we're often asked about how to link up systems, ERP and our accounts and CRM systems. And in fact, you might be asking suppliers that question yourself at the moment, and some of the answers sometimes they confuse you, or you may get a range of answers. And I've summarized here for you this morning that there's really three ways that you can connect the front office and the back office, or typically we'll say an ERP to a CRM. One is sort of the lowest level, which is a data migration approach, where you export data from one system and import it to the other using our old friend Excel. And that might be done once a day, once a week, once a month, whatever. And in fact, that actually works in some cases. If you don't need bang up-to-date data, that actually works pretty well sometimes, because it may be that the particular back-end system you're using doesn't allow for a lot of integration. That may be the case if it's a more legacy system. The second approach is to get a connector. Those are specific connectors that link ERPs and account systems to CRM systems. Some of you will already be very familiar with that. There tends to be a lot of specialist suppliers these days that supply those. And the last is the full integration. That's where typically the CRM system will render the CRM system as well, and no matter how the integration is done internally, effectively for the user, they all look the same. In other words, you have a single pane of glass, and you wouldn't notice the difference. So if you're dealing with your vendor or IT partner, it's worth asking about that whole area. How specifically is the integration going to happen? Because that will affect, I think I'm right there in saying, Grant, that will affect user experience in some way. There are just different types of user experience when you link things up.
Exactly, because when you're linking it up, what may or may not happen is if it's working on two databases, you want to make sure that it's actually rendering the correct information within and from the correct database.
Okay, and just to finish off on this piece, there's a screen grab from an ERP 200, and just for people who have a deeper interest in the technicalities, that is the screen that allows you to decide what you want in the CRM, what data you want to exchange. And I think it's worth pointing out that it's getting easier to do all of this. I think in the past, integration projects would have been huge items for a company and would have taken a long time, and that really has all changed now. The other issue we come across all the time is tying the likes of email back to ERP. Yeah, and sometimes the question is that general. Can I link my emails to my accounts? Yeah, and some systems allow you to do that, but it's actually one of the big reasons that we notice companies install front office CRM systems. It allows them to join up the dots between the data that's residing back in the ERP or the account system and the day-to-day email that's taking place. So I'll just put up an example there of where, you know, an account that exists in the ERP, national distributors, is hooked up to the CRM, and all of the emails that a rep has today or all year is linked against the account. And that's a tremendous reason to use these two systems or to link them together. It's a tremendous reason, for example, to give cloud tools to your mobile salespeople. Your salespeople are not going to ask about the ERP system. They're more likely to ask about how do I link up my emails and can I see it all on a single screen. And the shot I'm showing you there, that's specifically from Sage CRM. And one of the reasons we took on the Sage tool is that some of the summary reports are really neat. They just give you nice, clean summaries on the screen of what's happening to an account, for example. Yeah. I'm going to move on now to the second item, better selling effectiveness. So we've just dealt with the whole area of giving people more access to information, but selling effectiveness is often sort of secretly the one the manager is thinking the most about. Are we exploiting our account space well enough? Are we emphasizing the right set of accounts? Is opportunity management really up to scratch? And why is it we only ever sell the cheapest product, for example? So we're busy selling the cheapest thing, which keeps us very busy, but you can see at the end of the year it's not showing on the profit line. And these are examples where we've worked with clients to help them use CRM and their back-end systems to get greater visibility for the likes of salespeople and for managers so they can make better selling decisions. So here's an example, and in fact, Grant, this is from an ERP system.
That's right. And
even though it looks, you know, the line graphs look quite good, the actual trend is down on this account. Yeah. So it's our old familiar trend graph and classic business intelligence where the underlying trend is down. Yeah. But if you look now at the next graph, which is from the CRM, you'll notice something that in terms of the call cycle appointments, the top accounts, relatively speaking, are getting very little attention, and it's the bottom 10 accounts that are getting all the attention. You know, and those are typically the guys with the downward trends. And this is where linking together your back end and your front end CRM software system, so you're adding in weekly activity now, and you're beginning to see maybe there is quite the right alignment between what's happening on our account space and what's happening in terms of our appointments. And of course the reason for that is that often our call cycle is something that was put in place 10 years ago, or the call cycle is more a convenient geographical cycle. It actually has very little relationship to what's happening in the in the actual account space. And this is the type of move that really shows a payback very quickly. And actually it's not difficult to do either. That's the good news about it. These are not difficult things to do. We've set this up for clients in under a week. So it just goes to show how much the technology has come on as well. Another just example of using technology to improve effectiveness. Here's a little feature from Sage CRM. In fact, personally, it's my favorite feature. It's the facility to log a call from your smartphone. In other words, if you call an account or a person from your smartphone, you just literally just touch the screen and it's logged back in the CRM. But we had a case of this recently with an industrial company who installed the CRM and linked it up to their account system, and they wanted to see which accounts were getting the most calls. But of course, up to them, they have no way of actually logging the calls. So once they introduced the CRM mobile facility, they were able to do it instantly. And what they found out is what they suspected, that There were lots of calls going in to certain types of accounts that really were keeping everybody busy, but it had absolutely very little to do with growth. Yeah. The logging call facility was set up instantly. Once the rep downloaded the app on his smartphone, he was pretty much good to go. Yeah. So following through on the sales effectiveness piece, here's a graph from an ERP, Sage 200 again. It's showing typical account behavior. In this case, it's order and returns value. So it's the back-end behaviors of the accounts. And here's a very common thing we do for clients is we overlay that with an account classification system, which puts accounts into a completely different perspective. You're not just looking at things like returns anymore. That's not the type of analysis you're doing. You're now saying, if we were to look at our accounts, which ones do we consider to be key accounts, growth accounts, maintenance accounts, and opportunistic accounts? And this little sequence is something that you could change, but we use it with any client that asks us about this whole area of classifying accounts. And what you see there on the left-hand side is the drop-down menu in the CRM. So what this is doing, what has happened here is, this client, for example, has taken data from the ERP, yeah, has put some classification around it, and even allows the rep to change that over time in the CRM. But now you have a completely different way of thinking about your accounts. Yeah, and again, this is not difficult to set up. You just need to agree on a language. The actual technical setup is something like 5 minutes. Obviously, you'll have to sit around the table and think about, is this how we want to run the business? But companies that have done this type of thing have been able, over a 3 to 6 month period, transform their account management. They might have a couple of hundred accounts, and some clients have 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 accounts that we work with. And in fact, if it's at those higher levels, you're going to need something like this to manage your account space. Now, you can do something else as well. You can take it further, and as a manager, you can now begin to influence what you want your salespeople to do. So I've gone here right to the pipeline dashboard, because if you're going to do this type of analysis on your accounts and identify strategic accounts or key accounts, what you then want is you want front-end salespeople to be reacting to that data. So here's an example of where a salesperson has, if you like, literally been fed accounts, and if you notice, they've gone into the prospecting part of the pipeline. Yeah, because there's no point in doing this analysis and structural work if you're not going to execute on it. We have our data in the ERP, we've got some structure through the CRM, but tomorrow morning, are we supposed to go in a different direction? Should we be visiting a different set of accounts? Should we be changing our schedule? And this is something that is possible through the CRM, where the manager, for example, could reassign accounts or assign certain accounts for special prospecting. And literally in this case, the salesperson will go into their CRM, would open up their dashboard, would say, in this case it's Sage CRM, and they would see a set of accounts that they've been given for targeting. Yeah. So this completes sometimes what I call the last mile. It's the last mile of execution, where we have great intentions, but is anyone going to do anything different next week? Sometimes I say, are we going to turn the car in a different direction than we did last Monday? Because if we don't, we won't be tackling the accounts that we really want to be tackling, or that we need to tackle to grow the business. Yeah. Now, another very familiar issue that you will identify in your ERP system is that often 20% of your products account for most of your turnover. And here's a typical ERP report by product name. And that is very useful, but how do you leverage that and bring it to the front-end people, and how do you get your salespeople to think differently about the product mix? It's a very common thing in sales that, as a salesperson, I get comfortable with product number 1 and product number 6, but I don't deal with all the other 10 products that we sell. And that's because I need to deliver my numbers every week, so I find my comfort zone, and if it works for me, it works for me. But the manager is saying, we're tackling new products, we're trying to open up new markets, we've got to get our cross-sell and upsell better. So here's an example where we've worked with a client specifically in the oil business, and they have dozens and dozens of products. So what they did was they brought the product list right into the CRM and presented it graphically to the client, to the salespeople, so that the salesperson sort of has to think about the product mix, and ultimately that product mix gets translated into actual activity and appointments, So the products, the accounts, all sitting back in the CRM, You can do very good analysis there, but you've got to use your CRM product to bring that to life for salespeople. The salesperson isn't going to go in and make this sort of strategic analysis in an accounting system. You've got to make it easy for them to understand what you're thinking, i.e. we have some very profitable products here, we should be selling more of it, but we need it on the calling schedules. And you can see here in this case, literally it is graphically on the screen in front of you. Now, what we're doing here is we're connecting the dots, and we're using CRM to connect the dots between the product mix and sales effort. And we're using the technologies of the CRM to link back to the back office data. Here's another example of where you might have given a salesperson a job to do on a specific product line, and using the graphical approach that is very typical that you would get in a CRM system, you notice there's just currently two live opportunities in the sales pipeline, which is a much easier way to see things than flying through spreadsheets and trying to figure out what's been happening.
Michael, those aren't traditional CRM screens, are they? What are the trends in the user interface designs that are making CRMs more attractive for end users?
They're not exactly your traditional CRM screens that I've been showing you. They're a new generation of graphical screens. They're using drag and drop, for example, and I think this is a huge issue. The CRM tools in particular, in other words, front office tools have to be very simple, they have to be very intuitive. The big trends, Grant, are we're going graphical, we're going drag and drop, we're making it so easy that you actually want to do it. People, particularly in sales and service and frontline people, will tend to do things because they're easy, not because they're virtuous necessarily. That the virtue that comes later. The first question you're going to ask is, are you making this harder than it currently is? Because if you are, I'm going to continue to write stuff in the back of envelopes, or at best I'll do a spreadsheet. If you come along and say, you touch it, it opens up, you've hardly any data entry to do, you drag it along, you close it and you move on, people will actually tiptoe their way back to these tools and start using them. And so you're beginning to see, I think, a huge move towards things like drag and drop, which we're just about to launch now in the Sage CRM product. So to put that in perspective, it is now possible to take data, for example, from say one of Grant's clients, which are ERP clients, and join the dots all the way back to the data in the CRM through in the ERP through the CRM right onto somebody's tablet, so that they can interact with their accounts and manage a pipeline from a single screen on their tablet using a graphical interface. And the data has been translated back into the CRM and the ERP. In fact, literally, the manager can sit in the office and watch stuff happening. Just to continue on the effectiveness piece, another area that I'd mentioned it earlier was the coding and the ordering area that we come across a lot is being able to attach communications to your quoting process, and it's quite amazing, really. We've a good bit of technology these days, but in a lot of companies, managers, they'll say to us, look, if I went to my email, I get one story, but if I went to my accounts, I get a different story, and the two of them actually don't speak to each other. In other words, I don't really know how many emails were sent to that account over the last 6 months. I do know we sent probably tons of emails, but they're probably in different people's folders. So a classic use of a CRM tool is to link the communications, now whether it's email or it's phone calls or meetings, link that back to the accounts, and that's probably one of the most straightforward and simple things that you'll want to do if you're looking at merging these two pieces, the back office and the front office. And this is the Sage CRM product. They have a really nice facility for linking these up, and I think it's something a lot of front office people would really want to as well. And just to finish off on that piece, you may also want to link your marketing activity to your accounts database. In other words, are we communicating to our accounts database? Are we communicating to the right parts of it? Should we be segmenting it and sending different pieces of content? And Sage, for example, have just integrated MailChimp into their CRM product. MailChimp is also partly free, so it's used a lot by SMEs, and I think this is the sort of facility that's going to be really popular with the SME market, and is already built in there, and you're good to go. Yeah. Final piece I want to deal with is better performance visibility from the managers. And I just noticed, Grant, there is a question in.
Yeah. She's asking, our sales and service staff are heavy users of the ERP system. If we were to use CRM, would they have to continue to still use the ERP?
Well, I'll part answer it, and maybe you Grant would contribute to it as well. I think you could do either. Some companies would decide, look, I want everything done through the CRM, because so long as it's done there, it'll arrive in the ERP. Yeah. Plus, there's all the contact data as well. Yeah. But if it's a highly integrated setup like Sage 200 and CRM, could they still work from the ERP or?
Yes, they could. What happens in that circumstance really is, especially for quotations and stuff like that, once a quote comes in, or rather you put a quote out there, you can then turn that quote directly into a sales order or a purchase order. And that information is obviously immediately available within the CRM again.
Yeah, so I suppose we're getting closer to that concept, what some people call the single pane of glass. Yeah. Yeah, where you ideally lose track of what you're in, because it doesn't matter. Yeah. You lose that consciousness, and you just know that I put data in here, and it makes its way into different systems, and maybe different managers are looking at the reports and so on it as well. And I think that goal has been around for 30 years.
I think excuse me, I think what's also helpful is once you've fed that back into the ERP, and you've got those quotations and all the bits and pieces inside there, within the business intelligence that is often built into the ERP systems, you're then able to actually extract that data again and get actionable data that you can pass back to the CRM.
Yes, so you're actually building on your business intelligence, but you're using the facilities in the accounting or ERP system, so you're getting the best of both worlds. Right. And there'll be different emphasis there depending on the scale of the ERP and CRM.
And who's going to be using it.
Yes. So okay. Well, thanks for that, Grant. I'm going to finish off now with the third challenge, which is better performance visibility for the manager. Here's an example of a set of accounts from an ERP system. A manager's looking at this and then wondering, are we targeting these accounts in the right way? Who did we visit and who do we plan to visit? And here's the sort of thing you can do then in your CRM system is, for example, show me appointments for last week or scheduled for next week for, we'll say, just our key accounts. So just notice the difference. On the one hand, back office is very good at the, these are your accounts. The front office systems start to link the softer stuff, the phone calls, the activity. In particular, if it's a key accounts, you'll be looking at visits, for example. Yeah, this is one of the most common setups that we do for clients is giving them activity visibility across their account space. And it's very interesting to watch this, because within a week of introducing something like this, salespeople start to re-engineer their calling schedules, which is exactly what the manager wanted in the first place. Similarly, if we look at a set of accounts, a set of quotations, we're looking here at a classic set of quotations in an ERP system, but a manager's more thinking, well, have any of these accounts got quotations or opportunities in the pipeline at the moment? And in this case, we've transformed that into a pipeline view of quotations, and you can see but the little tiles, the blue tiles, those are effectively deals or opportunities or quotations, and you can see them at different stages in the pipeline. Some are at prospecting stage, some are right up at the verbal stage. So it's the connecting of these two worlds where the effectiveness begins to increase, because now a manager can say, we're either doing this right or we're doing it wrong, or we've got gaps, for example, or we have a lot of quotations but they're at the wrong part of the pipeline, or they stick in the middle of the pipeline. And I'm sure all of you have those experiences where you see lots of quotations come through, but you're not quite sure what happened to some of them. And therefore, just managing by quote is not enough. You've got to add in the pipeline as well to sort of complete that picture. A second item that we come across on managers a lot, with managers a lot, is they're looking at their accounting and ERP systems, and they're getting a very good sense of what has happened, and they could use that data as well to extrapolate. But they're also asking the question, specifically in April, what is going to happen? Yeah? So they're asking for what is a classic sales forecast. And sales forecasts have to be built on evidence, in other words, what people are actually doing today. So that's where the graphical systems come in again, where your CRM system, and this will be available shortly through Sage CRM, where you can see your committed forecast for the current month, for example. Yeah? Because the manager is more interested in seeing what's going to happen, and we're sort of hitting mid-month now. The forecast you see here on the screen is saying, look, we're going to do 65 grand, but if you notice the target is actually 180k. Yeah. So we need to get back to the sales pipeline and start moving those quotations, or generate more quotations, or improve our activity. And that's where you change your call cycles and maybe even your selling approach as well, and approach clients in a different way, or approach different accounts that maybe aren't getting enough attention. That's it. That's it. This morning, folk. I appreciate you coming on the webinar. We'll be emailing you the recording of the webinar. You may want to share it with some colleagues as well. And I'd like to thank Grant for joining us from Brook. We're going to be doing a series of those over the next couple of months, because we're seeing a lot more happening in terms of ERP linking up to front office systems, and just people just generally upgrading their technology, whether it be in the cloud or some mix of cloud and on-premise. So thanks everyone, and have a great day. Thank you.